Now we have clarified the first panel, and this last panel focuses on literacy. And we have representatives of different institutions, and together we can discuss what those literary skills are in this curve, how to go through the curve, how to be in the curve. So maybe this will be a bit more practical and will cast some more light and perspective from different angles, depending on your background and your knowledge about this field. And we have also you have the audience, you have the opportunity to ask questions through Lido. Because previously I didn't ask any questions, even though I saw some, and I tried to present some topics so that to cover also your questions. I didn't ignore your questions. I tried to be more spontaneous, but I will see your questions now, and if I'm able to include them, I will definitely do so. But now, introduction rounds. I will try to do it myself. First of all, Eleli Insikko, who is from Tartu University, Social Sciences, Qualitative Studies, co-professor, and at the same time, 2026 Human Studies Chief Editor. Then we have Kadri Männosoo from Tallinn Technical University, Economic Analysis and Financial Institute, in tenure, professor in tenure. Is that true? And then going on, I have Kaido Babusk, the Board of Statistics, Data Services. Katrin Tiedenberg, Tallinn University, BMF, Baltic Media Film. Margit Sutrop from Tallinn, Tartu University, Practical Specialty. Mari-Liis Sööt from the Chancellery, Director of Strategy, Tanel Tammet, Tallinn Technical University, AI full-time professor in tenure. So this is the company we have today, and we have decided that before we start to discuss certain questions, I would like to give you the floor. You have had time to prepare for this panel. The topic is literacy, and you have a short time, a brief moment to launch in kind of domino effect, and we start from Annelies. Thank you. You introduced me that I'm from the Department of Economy, but I'm actually here as a philosopher. And what is the idea? Why I'm putting out this curve metaphor? The curve is full of wars, economic decline, AI, artificial intelligence. What can we do in this curve? The main skill that is really necessary in school, family, society as a whole is to be as a human being, to learn to become a human being. Very simple. What does it mean to be human? And we need to understand who the teachers are, who the students are, who the parents are, who is the director of school, who are the members in the family. So being, or the art of being a human being, that's the key, because I know the technology is learning very fast. But the human being learns very slowly how to be a human being. And a very interesting beginning. Let's keep that in mind. Moving on, Tanel Tammet, please. I have this kind of being a human being. I have a longer idea, comment on that, but let's keep that on hold for the time being. But if to answer the question directly, I think this is important to know that all kinds of speculations about what could happen with artificial intelligence, what we could do or we might do, these are random speculations. We can't see any reasons to speculate, or my advice would be, on the contrary, to try to experiment all the time, because nobody knows that there is somebody clever somewhere, and there's no point for us to experiment. There is every point to experiment all the time, because the cleverest thing to do is to develop artificial intelligence. This is more important than anything else. Maybe that's an example of professional criticism, but everybody can do that if you try to use it there, here and there, and map the experience of others, and also, record what happens. This is important. And historical context. There are many examples. I prefer to think about ancient slave regime. You have important rich people who have many slaves. How did they live at that time? When this artificial intelligence gathers momentum, then it might turn out that you have so many slaves, and you can then think, how can we then teach children? What is their motivation? Because historically, we actually know this was very intensive. There was nothing easy about it. Because all these people who had many slaves, they made their child work hard. Their life was hard. Actually, want to clarify that AI would be our slave. Exactly. This is one way of thinking. This is a quick way of thinking. Catherine, I'm interested in literacy and capacity and their connection with convenience and comfort, that abilities, and these are very individual. When we think about information, ability, capabilities, media capabilities, but at the same time, technological changes, this is a challenge to all of us. The question is, how do we reach this point that this individual capacity counts in terms of those technological changes? If one single individual and his use of AI apps brings along eco catastrophes, if you insert in every Google search by default, there is AI aspect. Can it does it have any impact? It does. Can one use ChatGPT successfully? Maybe this has limited impact, but maybe a certain social demographic group uses or can use these apps more efficiently. These aspects are culturally important, and that can also board us on our lines. I'm interested in this bridge. Margit Sotrop. Good afternoon. It's very pleasant to be here together with you. I was actually attending an international conference early in the morning where we dealt with the ethics concerning artificial intelligence. Then I said, but those who develop AI, and they have to do it with glee, they should sit together with those who are concerned about the artificial intelligence, that it should not make us humans slaves, and also align along the beliefs and ethical values that we have. But the developers of AI, data researchers, and all those who are very enthusiastic, let's agree what the values are, what we follow. We, from the ethical point of view, we, the mankind, we have not made an agreement on this. So I think we need to think in one country, in one part of Europe, we are celebrating Europe Day. In another parts of Europe, we are witnessing wars, bombing, and destruction, and all kinds of atrocities. So being a human being is very important. Being a good human being. a human being actually can commit horrible things. So the aspect of ethics is very important. And my message here is, and my research also goes towards it, there are very many diverging things. I don't think that we can all come together and well agree, but we can think as Berlin. We can think that we cannot come to an agreement about whether it's important, whether freedom is important or equality is important, but we have different ideologies. Also, ethic theories may not reach an agreement ever because we don't have an equal measure. But we can always think what we never ever want to happen or let happen as a humankind, even though there are more non-democratic countries in the world today than democratic, but this belief that we are talking to each other, that we are bringing these topics onto our discussions, that nobody wants to be dismissed, tortured, and this common ground maybe has to be reached through negative things as well. And therefore, we need to also realize that the development of AI should not lead us to a situation where those negative values actually are amplified. Yes. Thinking about this literacy and my thoughts actually equality, inequality. Mario Lauristin referred to this earlier today. We talk about artificial intelligence because it has several names. It can learn by itself. And on this background, we as humans, we cannot be withdrawn. For us, literacy is very important because literacy is so important. But how is it connected with through the fact that the ability to learn by oneself? This maybe creates the most inequality. Teamberger Grace, okay, this race says that technologies are not neutral. They empower certain categories of people and they put other categories into a poorer situation. And also AI and all this computer use, talking about social media, whatever those modern opportunities are, the user categories are so different. Some are just recreational and they don't give feedback. They don't give the opportunity to develop or to get um, stronger. And then there are other things who can actually make it very profitable and useful for themselves. And also, know that we need to explain the world because it's the AI. It's like an alien. We need to explain. This is my role. Why I'm asking you this? This is kind of the uh, teaching AI to write and to read. This is the context. This human aspect. We into is it in we understand the situation, the context. We sense it. And this requires also the ability to learn, to understand the cultural background and all that. But it is certain now. The main thing today and tomorrow is to adapt to massive changes. Combating the reality, well, we can't get anywhere. Mr. Toffler, who is the scientist of the future of the 21st century, illiteracy is not only the inability to read and write, but the inability to learn. And those massive changes, when we talk about radical innovation in one country, this radical innovation, what is it? Is it adaptation with those big changes, not those small changes, but big ones? And in this context of data, AI is data. This incremental thing, if we do something where we are leading a country, we use the data more efficiently. But those bigger, massive changes are that we are making the data part of politics. We can actually predict certain courses of action. And for all this, we need to be prepared and we need to be able to change. Thank you. Pavlos, please. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation. As the representative of the Board of Statistics, I actually listened to all the panel discussions, and I was so glad to see that our data were used. And I'm just so glad that you trust our data. And probably there's no better data than than ours. With Marilise, I can start discussion. When I prepared panel, they were very philosophical. I have not done research for decades. And then I thought, well, let's look what the people say. I think I can use the output of this certain machine. The machine says, when we talk about literacy, data is a language of our day. When we do not teach the society to speak this language, then the machines will teach us. I think this is quite benefit our panel. Thinking forward, the Board of Statistics, what does it mean for us? If data is the language of our era, I think we are not the language inspectorate. Maybe we need to be the language institute. But what is our role in this new society? Because AI is based on data, and the quality of AI depends on the quality of data. And the Board of Statistics and our so we need to be also more intrigued. Thank you. There are so many topics on the table, and I'd like to go further. So, what have you thought in the world of statistics when you say that data is the language of our era? Is it a language that most people cannot speak or cannot ask? When I go to the homepage of the statistics board, and if I miss 1 week, maybe it means that I have missed out and I'm a loser. Maybe I should sit there, check your homepage constantly. What are you saying? Well, let's check this data aspect and then move on. Okay. No, you don't need to go to search data. Data should come to you. But if we think that about this language aspect, that literacy, our strategic development plan that we prepared 3 years ago, we said that one of the 4 pillars was data literacy. But when we compared at that time our development plan with other statistics boards in other European countries, then we did not find it so clearly, this idea, this data literacy, but it was not specified so clearly in other statistics boards in Europe. And this strategic development plan, when I started to review it to prepare for today's panel, our aim was written down in a paternalistic way, just top down, that we are helping the society understand, we are explaining, training, etc. Okay, this needs to be done, and this is what we do. We go to schools, universities, and I think this is my sixth time this year in Caltech to talk to different audiences. Whenever we have the opportunity, we come, we talk about these things. And in addition, also our state institution, we have a very professional communication team. Their performance is phenomenal. We have received a golden egg. Followers on social media, and they may have noticed our nice visuals. Oh, this is all wonderful. But data reading, data literacy, what does it mean, actually? I thought about those different examples. This is always top down. But what could we do better to understand the user of data. Why are they using our data? What is missing? What should be available in different formats? And all this world is under another pillar, data services. Data literacy is even more important, that we come and tell you that data should be used in a certain way. Do we really understand our users and their needs, and also the needs of the society? Data reading ability. What language? What are we talking about? I would like to understand. Is it something that, oh, you are producing 10 tons of statistics about different aspects of the society? Is it the data that we should constantly read and understand and follow? What do you have in mind? How are they obvious for people? Maybe you can bring a very concrete example. Maybe I can make it even broader, because we are producing in our office about more than 3,000 statistics, let's say indicators, that this is the government order, but this is a minute part of the total. What we have been thinking about, how to make all our data available to the society in order to improve this literacy. We are encountering legal obstacles, ethical obstacles, and this is also part of literacy. We are not the only institution in this country who is collecting data, because when we talk about statistical data, then these are the data of human beings or enterprises who have received the data. We have borrowed them, or whatever the form is. But how can we give something back? And in this respect, we need to improve our own literacy. Did I answer your question? Thank you for this. It's all very good, but we can clarify. Coming back to this inequality motive that was suggested earlier, this education inequality is a very important topic. These new literacies and this inequality that Mario Lauristin earlier pointed out, this is very bad, that we have new technologies, but still this inequality is steepening. It's becoming bigger, and some people are lagging behind more and more. And all these new literacies, be it based on the example of data, why is this inequality actually becoming steeper and steeper? Okay, data and inequality, when we understand it too late, maybe you can recall what were the promises when we started e-country. Data is free, so we can use data to make our country, our governance more efficient. How far are we from this? Why did we create e-governance, and where are we now? And I think I'd like to see the diversification. Well, we have this educational inequality. If we can react, where are those dangerous profiles? Where do we need to intervene? Because interventions based on data, this is something that we as a state, as a government, can use. But what is inequality? Is it material inequality, or cognitive, or somehow mental? Some people get along better in the society, and maybe some people have understandings that do not match the reality. Yes. And we have systematically schools where the results are worse constantly, schools where there is a shortage of teachers, and this is where inequality is piling up. And at the same time, in the university, I'm teaching on master's levels, and I still take articles from social media. This is kind of a wholesale product. And I have, of course, data from the statistical office. They have it presented in a very manipulative way. Asking my students that this manipulating with data, this is a very dangerous trend. Am I able to identify the truth? Do I trust? The data, of course, is objective, but the presentation may not be so objective. Karin also, maybe. Okay. Would like to comment the data thing from a more skeptical point of view. We are talking about statistics, whatever. If you say that we are visualizing, manipulating statistics, but for AI, there's no need for such things. AI needs raw data, raw information. It is learning patterns. We are not simplifying statistics, which is necessary for humans. For AI, it is about patterns. So roughly, to follow economics, and there we receive very strong tensions because if we want to improve our medicine, we need raw personal data. We need to process them. Of course, nobody wants to give this raw data, but we can develop AI. But it depends on whether we are able and ready to have this surveillance society. I don't have one single answer to that. I very much agree with Daniel. Add that we need to find this good balance that the privacy of people is secured. And at the moment, we have this data security regulation that is limiting the use of ChatGPT. Take data from China. Of course, they can develop their technologies much faster, but as the medical technologies, we kind of follow, let's say, heartbeats and so on and so forth. But in America, you can actually reveal your medical data. So we are talking about values. We need to find a good balance, securing privacy, but also promoting social benefits, be it health, be it education. And I think that we can see it when artificial intelligence reaches our educational system, because a lot can be used to curve out flexible study paths, and that teachers can give direct feedback to students where they are constantly wrong or mistaken. So I think this is a point. This is a place that the data can be used to a good end, but they can also be used to stigmatize people, to discriminate. I have not. I know Jan Aru has introduced this word, tehisaru in Estonian, artificial intelligence. So with artificial intelligence, the training of data or the training of models based on data, what data does it receive? And this is what artificial intelligence does. And another aspect is that these regulations, we can actually overdo that if we limit the use of data. And what has been the main concern? We are afraid. Scientists are in a position that where there's an institution where we don't know, is this data available to be used for scientific purposes, for public purposes? And ChatGPT allows it. Finland has said clearly what can be used for scientific purposes. And I know it's probably not the work for the Parliament, but the work for Data Protection Board. Are there too few people or too little courage to say it out that now here we allow for this scientific purposes to use this and this data. And you, as social scientists, you are in a situation where you could do certain things, but there is a danger that at some point somebody says, well, this was not allowed. And this is a worst case scenario. And this, in this context, we should need to pull our forces. But we had a work group where we discussed personalized data usage for research, and many universities have raised this issue and are using it, and we really insisted the data inspectorate to clarify the matter, but we didn't get an answer, and this is actually hindering science and hindering our work. Happy Manaso, the floor to you too. Also, I do agree that data should be more available and based on clearer rules. But what I wanted to add as to educational inequality, we had a very good natural experiment, as we have dubbed it, COVID crisis. And also my research revealed that such a bubbling or being in a bubble showed that people were isolated, they were within their families. But how big differences occurred in the academic results of teachers? It depended on the capabilities of families. This bubbling in societies, how do we take into use technology? Are we going to learn languages with Duolingo? The tools are not expensive, but this motivation aspect as well. It very much depends on who is surrounding you. Is it your family, colleagues, or this professional circle around you? And it seems that the development goes in this direction, that is bubbling or being encapsulated in your own group is creating actually more inequality. What is that? Margis Sutrop in reply, yes, data inspectorates, they are not the only guilty ones, but our state law says they intend to amend private data. So data inspectorate has this ability to check certain things. This is in the remit of the Justice Zone Ministry. But as to inequality, the state chancellor, the Board of Statistics, well, if a minister, politician asks a question, well, no need to discuss very quickly. How many people do we have who are going to receive a new kind of support measure? Well, it takes months and months. In drastic cases, even years. So, because it has to go through different levels. But decision based on data should also involve automatic movements. A person becomes a risk element in this algorithm or a statistical unit. What happened in the Netherlands? Prime Minister Rutte stepped back because they were testing child support flaws using algorithm. Everything seemed to be objective, but oops, it turned out that the algorithm is discriminating, and 26,000 families who had, say, immigrational backgrounds, and they were asked to pay back those support money. So when we become data-based, which I fully support, because when our data-based, we are fast, we are our tax and customs office, our money laundering institutions make use of that. It's very interesting to note that Finland has studied it. artificial and I think we can learn a lot from Finland. But very quickly, I would like to add or give you an example about discrimination. It's kind of a fun example. The biggest flaw, but we had this soap dosator. Person put his hands underneath in a bathroom, and it turned out that a black-skinned person, when he put his hand underneath the dosator, did not get this amount of soap. So, okay, this is another aspect to take into account. Okay, all these is very tightly connected with privacy. But Donald Dummett, do you understand correctly that this AI professorship, the ideal would be that if we thought those ethical issues and would make available all data and would get those good, useful slaves in return. Is this your perspective? Okay, this is a normal view. This is how computer scientists look at things. Okay. This is not a break on your enthusiasm. This is something that some other creatures are talking about, something that is none of our concern. This is their game. We are doing real things, and then they are playing something somewhere. This is okay. I'm not saying that this is something that I share or I want to promote, but this is this normal perspective. And as an example about inequality, this inequality that you are talking about, from this computer science perspective, this is not so important. This is not dealt with. This inequality that I can sense is about, it's different. It's more, let's say, economic. Automatization also brings along centralization. The more automation, the more centralization. Well, we talked about urbanization, internetization, and this might democratize societies. No, on the contrary, as soon as it centralizes economies, and we can also see it centralizes politics. The United States is a caricature example of this. How this strong technological basis reaches through centralization politics. And these examples are highly critical because they are very big mechanism, much bigger mechanism about, well, who gets the soap from the soap machine or who does not. This humanitarian debate that can take place behind a corner, this is not a serious thing. Since 24, I have been following the change. Well, you can talk about these things, but you are like dogs that bark, but the caramel is going on. And now we have this AI top center involving social scientists, okay, researchers. Okay, okay. But you are also human beings and part of the society, and at some point this will hit you. Future, to Heidegger. This is a matter of learning. And internationally, in other countries, in other companies, I've seen and witnessed that maybe ethical people, researchers, philosophers, where we can sit behind the same table. When you asked about the skills, the literacy, okay, I think there's a skill to cooperate, a skill to listening, because before writing, we need to hear, we listen. We need to understand what you're doing. If you miss it completely, then that's a problem, naturally. But with this AI, this is ethical design. It's a very practical notion. It means that before you start to develop something, you need to think, what are the things you need to take into account? When you have this checklist, privacy, equality, and so on and so forth, we need to keep an eye on that. It's easier then before, because afterwards you create something that will be banned, and that's a waste of resources. And in this respect, I do hope that the same, let's cooperate, let's sit behind the same table and understand the ideas of social scientists, and also this inequality things. This soap example, of course, is a tiny one, but the biggest problem is that jobs are going to disappear. This is actually the biggest problem. Well, machines occurred and took away jobs, and now the only opportunity is that we have some clever jobs, a cleverer thing that mankind can do with its real mind. Okay, AI will do all this clean work, these white collar things, and we are going to attend to these blue collar things. What are we going to do if all these uh, simple things can be done better with by AI? Really moment. Good. Briefly, I would like to give the floor to Dan and Dammit. This is a good place. I'd like to talk about humaneness. A long time ago, I realized when you say humane, it means animalness. Humane things are common attributes to mammals, cattle, dogs, not bears. Bears are this, but it's something that makes us different. These are very cruel things, being calculated, being rational. This is not something that is encompassed by this form word humane, but this is something that has been built in into all this discussion. I would like the floor to Kaido Paavusk and then Kaido and Katrin. A small note, comment. We have thought that what is happening in the United States, we also feel frustrated. Why don't people understand that data is important? Why don't they take the data from databases? And why Germany, for example, they are so careful about sharing personal data. But looking at what is happening in America, in American government, where they actually go to databases and they let machines enter, and based on that they make decisions that very directly affect people, then I'm afraid that there could be a very, very bad slash from there. Karin. Yes, we have talked about different topics. Coming back to this literacy, this objection to computer sciences, social sciences, the question boils out what is pragmatical. When we bring that, when we think about this everyday literacy, there's another similar controversy. What is convenient? What makes my life easier? What I have been taught? What are the capacities? What am I able to use the technology? Should I trust the news? Should I use AI or not? The question is, and we're not thinking about it because it is a very difficult thing to think about as scientists and as educators. Let's say this era of technological change that has been for the past 40 years. The technologies have changed. We should learn from these literacy capacities, abilities, competencies. Where is the balancing point, the tipping point? And what we have found in previous competencies. So it's not enough to to be able to write and read, to be literate, because people don't use it because it's cognitively uh, very time-consuming to always fact check. It becomes paranoid because certain things we trust the blindsiding because I like a certain person. I'm not checking because this makes my life so inconvenient because the technological breakthroughs from previous generations. We all know how our data is used, privacy issues. Do people move onto alternative platforms? No, they don't. Predominantly, cost of voting out. The cost is too high, and this also boils down to convenience, comfort, and this is pragmatic versus value-based approach. Same question: how to create this bridge, let's say, between this pragmatic viewpoint and this convenience or inconvenience avoidance? How to shift it slightly so that people would be prepared to give away a certain amount of their convenience and how it's the bridge. Well, yes. No follow-up ideas on that. Yes. No. I need to choose. We have received some comments, fundamental things. They are quite surprising. And therefore, we'd like to reiterate that when Eneli pointed out that being a human being is an art, and we actually saw two different approaches. A view that human qualities are something that's a very brutal. Rationality enables us to live out as beasts, and we are fighting together. Some fall out, some don't. Well, there's nothing we can do. That's our existence. But on the other hand, we hear that a human being is empathetic. We know this categoric imperative not to be in this pragmatic version. And these two approaches, they don't have this kind of common ground. People who are developing technologies, physical material term, they are not interested about Kant or Aristotle. So what is our view about human beings? We need to improve, we need to become better, more empathetic. It's just a talk. No, I don't want to have this contradiction. Beasts or cattle also have empathies, and people also have feelings of empathy. And I'm concerned that adults and also young people and children are not able to be human beings. We need to deal with this because unless we do, it will be very costly for society, for schools. Therefore, I think that being a human being, this is the only being a human being. What is now, if we talk about literacies, does it mean that a human being needs to be able to read himself in some sort of way, manner that enables him to express himself, or do we need some sort of an entirely new view, or this old traditional philosophic view is good enough? Yes. If a person has a good analytical skill to read himself, thoughts, ideas, feelings, that's very useful. To read oneself, that starts from kindergarten, from home. This is also a saving moment from the state. Margit, empathy. I do agree because animal empathy, if one person or if one animal is scared, the whole herd runs away. And as Jonas mentioned earlier, the same categorical imperative. Indeed, what makes us different from animals? We can give us ourselves moral commands. And Immanuel Kant, this is my moral count in my heart. And these are really, I'm not a Kant fan myself, but as to literacy, I'd like to point out these moral aspects once again. Let's take schools, education, university. ChatGPT enables us to present the answers from others. The statistic board expressed one view, but as a lecturer, I have this question. I want to know if it is your thought or is it the thought from ChatGPT? And this respect is ethical viewpoint. This is changing our world significantly. If there are no limitations, you can present something as your own. So thoughts belong to everybody. So those who are more aware are able to set certain limits. But I think that also technological experts, they are also concerned that if the Chinese are stealing what we have created, then I'm quite convinced that, well, we are going to be happy and just move on. No. And we talk about intellectual rights, ownership rights. I don't think you want to present an article as your own. Critical aspects really strongly come into this technological development. I recently wrote the use of ChatGPT in higher education. 327 articles were reviewed, and everything that was said is making us very concerned, but we have no solution. And this is a real problem because you can say that, okay, let's ban it, but we cannot check it really. We cannot. We cannot develop an engine to check. But what can change is teaching itself. What kind of a task are you giving in Tartu University, our AI little units? We're all concerned. We cannot give an essay task because we're not sure whether he wrote it himself. But then if he does not write the essay, he cannot logically write essays. And an essay writing is a big problem if somebody else does it for you and produces things. I think in this respect, I would say ethical literacy and this ethical self should also be able to make a difference. I'm going on and going on, but as an academician, I'm really of this opinion that this AI has increased equality. So students or people who speak English as a native language, it's so much easier for them to write their abstracts and to formulate their ideas and projects summaries. We are more equal with those people who speak a more common language, access to sources, gathering information. Only the rich people got access or to download information. Equality between nationalities or equality between academicians, well, we have equal use and access to tools, and therefore there's educational needs and tools at our disposal if we use it correctly. Then America can create a very big academic push. Thank you. I have been thinking as a bad person, but likewise, I'm also optimistic. I like to think about examples that Alexander of Macedonia, they were taught by Aristotle, and clearly they had slaves and they had people who were less paid but prepared to write their essays and do other homework, which is the case also today because there are so many people who can please do something for me. There are other people who don't do them, but if we're in a situation that everybody can do equally same thing, so the situation is much more different and better. And also the way how we teach, we can imagine. So there is nothing totally new there. And what it seems to me, maybe also a useful tip in a situation where we don't know much about the development of AI or the direction of its development, or we don't even know the current situation. This is very unclear. But it is relatively certain to say that it's very diverse. It's also multi-layered. I want to be kind of positive about being a human being because there's one aspect that, okay, we have so many different specialists, it's just good. But on the other hand, this personal diversification is also a value because you are aware about so many different things. You have different directions at the same time. You can move in this direction, another direction, and this value is increasing constantly. And this is something that we need to interpret into education as well. Less over specialization. What is it now? I think that the future doesn't belong to data. I'm a social scientist, sociologist, but I think the future belongs to humans. The humans who can use data very skillfully, and that means empathy. Yes, we're talking about the state has to be efficient, dog, but in addition, this empathetic state is necessary. This pleasant public service is necessary. Another thing is that as a human being, we need to maintain this right to have sovereignty about data. I can say yes, no. We need to be vigilant about that. And we have talked about, and we have suggested four scenarios. We have a data market. You can sell your data, you cannot sell your data, the sovereignty your data. And another thing is that linked with your previous talk is that we, we say that sustainability or resilience, capacity to differentiate false information from true information. When we say that we all have this opportunity to write this essay, then today everybody also has the opportunity to say the machine, please provide arguments using 30 theories, arguments from me. And young people in this context need to be able to differentiate false information from true information, and maybe they are not ready for this. That is what I wanted to say. And Katrin Diedenberg also wanted to add. And again, if you have a hammer, then you can do whatever. Okay, learning. On the one hand, we have our earlier technology. We are panicking about technology, and we are panicking about AI. Our anxieties are going in this one same direction. Because I say I'm not vulnerable, I can do this, I can use data properly. There is somebody else, or the next generation will never be able to argue properly. And we know from before that this is not always the case, that those typical suspicions may not become true. And as a positive scenario, I would say that talking about literacy, what we what actually went somewhat wrong with this digital literacy discourse. It was very much about banning and warning, suspicion, to simplify it. And as a result, we had this epistemological vacuum. The things that you have, you need to be suspicious about them. You always need to kind of doubt about them, but nothing was offered in return or as a replacement. And we then have along, we saw populistic narratives and combination of all kinds of false things. I think we should be able to learn from our mistakes, not to create the situation that this is good, this is dangerous, don't do it like this. But we should also offer something instead. This student, do not write your essay, use AI, because otherwise you will be a fool. Well, they probably trust you, but they have had little sleep, and we can invent something else. How to write a good thing together with AI, so strategically. So these alternatives, this is something. Fully agree that this complementarity is important, because at the end of the day, it is very important who are developing technologies, who are using technologies, how are they using technologies. Because we're reaching the point that when we want to improve our quality of being humans, or the value that we have in this life, that the technology needs to develop. We may not see this direct connection immediately, and those detrimental things either. But what needs to govern is this human category. What are the technologies that will bring us forward as mankind? What have this positive sign? Well, last question. We have been given additional time, but the Board of Statistics said you have been very silent for a long time. But are you thinking? Yes, thinking. I'd like to formulate to wind up as the learning. This was also voiced for the adaptation, self-learning capacities, abilities that we need today and tomorrow. But with AI, we can see that all kinds of classical teaching forms and tasks will change. Essays, homework. Okay, you don't need to put effort. So, okay, the water will flow where it's easier to flow, and many things come without any effort. So, where in this world today is this point of making an effort? We used to learn Greek to read Aristotle. We used to read German to read Kant, but now we don't need to learn these languages. Where do we need to make an effort? Well, Aristotle was mentioned. He said that it's more important, from what we know, is that we are good people, and to become a good person, this takes effort, because it's a lifelong effort which cannot be achieved in a day or two. So we can reformulate it. What is this effort that we need to make to be successful in life? Are we going to be the victims of machines, or do we need to seek other solutions? Okay. I'm very happy about AI as a teacher. Creating questions, AI safe questions. What has changed in my life is that I got more time to discuss with people. That is the art of being a human being. For years, I have never so many discussions, arguments with students, and I make my students as walking encyclopedias. As to essays, we can do differently. Maybe we should think that tasks that we are used to giving, maybe we can do something different. That's a very difficult question, because I need to think what this other task could be. I do admit I'm using a lot of AI to create more interesting questions. And I've never talked so much in classroom with students as I'm doing now. I don't have a special recipe because my emotion, or the emotion that it's good to make students or whoever is learning, to make them do some hard, diversified work, to study mathematics, literature, physical exercise. It should be diversified. And therefore, this factological content, as you said, it's not so important. But the brain and neurology and developing our physical body, and this heavy work in so many different directions, this is the key. I do agree, but in addition, as a branch, young people, and I would say also very young people, teenagers, they have less problems becoming good human beings than we do because they are difficult. Just, and they often, am I going to write this essay with the help of AI, or am I using, well, let's say, climate sensitive students? Also, very quick answers to these issues than we do. We need to select who to protect from what. We don't need to nag about things or nag about students who know already better, because when we are, then we are wasting our own resources. The use of AI, I'm also a big user, but in fact, I'm also having discussions with AI, which is very interesting because I'm amazed how AI is able to ask questions back and is able to apologize when it hurts my feelings. I know it's very nice, yeah, if AI apologizes for making me feel bad. Okay, it's better to have nice manipulations than hard realities. I think students have more and more information all the time. I very much agree that we do not put an emphasis on obtaining knowledge, but acquiring or kind of sourcing for knowledge. And also critical thinking, how to make how to differentiate right from bad. Well, AI doesn't say it all. It invents an answer, even though they have never read about Kivira, but it still talks about Kivira books. That's an interesting subject. But nevertheless, put it simply, it's very important to ask, the ability to, the skill to ask a question. That's the main thing about philosophy. Philosophy boils down how to put a question, because in empirical sciences, provide an answer, the whole world is full of answers. But the thing is, the question to which we have an answer, and critical thinking. But as to this philosophical, Aristotle main issue, who do we want to be? What kind of life do we want to lead? Who do I want to be? Yes, again, the opportunities that technology gives us, do they support our science and what makes us happy? Or does it give us limitation? This is not about just arguing about things for argument's sake. Catherine Manasseh, also, it seems to me that technology also values human beings more than we used to, because when we think that the way how humans learn very different, because we learn through experience, reading, it takes time. We learn in different contexts, but the way how we learn is so much different. And we cannot copy these learning ways. We also differentiate between factual knowledge and experience. This experience is a much more broader concept, making connections, patterns. But as a lecturer, as a teacher, I also feel that are interested not so much in code writing, but today they want to write manually, students as human beings, not through technology. This is another revelation. State Chancellor Mario Lauristin has left. I can my views more boldly, but her ninth university lecture, literacy as a disappearing skill, uh, literacy is that defines us as human beings, and as she says very clearly, it enables us to cope with those mental problems, how to read a long text, to focus, to concentrate on longer text, because we are in an area where we have so many short texts. And our statistics board. Okay, I follow this discussion. I like this aspect of democratization and with AI, because indeed it simplifies many things and makes them easily accessible for many people. But I have an analogy from a different field. In the 1980s, we talked about synthesizers. Many people don't think that electronic music is music, aside from boomed after this. But maybe we should also take a similar view onto AI. Maybe it enables us to think or do very different. And when I'm prepared and I admitted that I'm using ChatGPT, and it's kind of a nice fellow conversation on this. I just added our strategy paper, I added quotes from books, and I received very ideas. And in this respect, it enables and it helps us to save on resources. We need to read through long text. We are not going to rely only on synthesized, shortened, abbreviated, adapted versions. So to panelists, our additional time is over. It's very up to you. We'd like to put on more topics on our tables, but let's finish now and see points. And thank you very much for this pleasure. Thank you.